are these people?
For those who don't know and have not been here since the beginning, Reef's internet crashed and his cable modem is shot. So I'm flying solo tonight. He is alive. He is okay. He is not in an undisclosed location, and thankfully he has not been disappeared, because we don't know what's happening in these trying times right now. It's very scary. Now, I mentioned narratives surrounding the good professor. Around Mahmoud Khalil. And I wanted to mention that even Senator Chris Murphy, who I have zero love for, sorry to show you my DMs, who I have zero love for, somehow figured out how to get this one right. So Middle East Eye posts that in a 3-minute video posted to X, Twitter, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut makes the case for why all Americans should be concerned about the arrest of Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil. All right, this is a 3-minute video, and I actually think it is important, and I'm going to show you why I think he's wrong and what he's missing in the end, but I'm sure you'll figure it out.
A young man by the name of Mahmoud Khalil, an immigrant and a legal permanent resident of the United States, is being held right now in prison, even though no criminal charges have been filed against him. And I want to tell you why that should matter to every single American. Khalil is a recent graduate of Columbia University. He opposed Israel's military operation in Gaza. He has deep animus toward Israel's policies and the U.S. support for those policies. He helped organize the protests over Gaza at his university last year. You can disagree with his views or his politics, but there is no evidence he has broken any law. But last weekend, Trump officials entered his apartment and took him into custody. They brought him to a detention facility in New Jersey at first, but when his family went to visit him, he wasn't there. For a while, his family and his lawyer had no idea where he was. They eventually found out that he was being held in a detention facility in Louisiana, and that's where he still is today. In dictatorships, they call this practice being disappeared. No charges, no claims of criminal behavior. The White House doesn't claim he did anything criminal. He's in jail because of his political speech. And here's why everybody should care. In America, your political speech is protected, whether or not the president likes what you say. But today, if you're loyal to Donald Trump, your speech is going to be protected, even if it's hate speech. You can be Marco Ellis, an employee of Doge, who said he, quote, was racist before it was cool, and, quote, normalize Indian hate. And the vice president of the United States will tweet in your defense. But if you are disloyal to Trump, or you're organizing against Trump's political agenda, your speech could be criminalized. You could find yourself in jail. Now, Trump chose to begin by disappearing a Palestinian immigrant, hoping that his place of birth and his immigrant status would just cause people to look the other way. But we cannot, because once it becomes normal for the regime to disappear people simply for protest against the regime's policies, once a citizen or a resident of America can be locked away with no charges against them simply because they protested, there is no going back for America. Even if you're a hardened Trump supporter, this practice should cross the line for you. Even if you disagree with Khalil's views, this practice should cross the line for you. This has nothing to do with supporting Trump. This is about supporting an American value, maybe the most important American value, protecting free speech, even if it's speech you disagree with. If our new reality is that a president can disappear an opposition protester with no charges filed against them, we are not America any longer. Today it's Mahmoud Khalil. Tomorrow it's me or you.
Sadly, he ain't wrong. Now, like I said, he's almost there. It's not criticism of Trump that got Mahmoud disappeared, asshole. And this is why I'm mad, and this is why I brought this. Okay, why be disingenuous like that? We know why, because of his funders. It was his criticism of Israel. Trump is doing this on behalf of Israel, Chris, Senator. Plenty of people have criticized him before for years. This is because of Beitar US and Israel. Murphy won't say it because he knows what'll happen if he does. He'll be primaried. The Democratic Party will spend ungodly amounts of money to defeat him, and Israel will spend whatever it takes to defeat him in his next primary and make sure that he is no longer the senator from Connecticut. That is how powerful that these organizations are. That is how powerful the Zionist lobby is in the United States. And I hate to say it, and I hate saying it, but we are an occupied government. When 3/4 of our government has to check with their AIPAC handler before they can vote on a bill, that is occupied. So not only are they occupying Gaza and the West Bank, they are occupying the United States Congress and the the White House as well. And the Doge Department, of course, because they occupy this platform that I'm showing you right here. Now, I'm going to rely on another couple of Indie Media Award honorees, so we're going to double it up here. Mintpress News, you know them, top outlet. Okay. Robert Inlakesh, 2024 honoree for one of the top journalists. And thank you in the words of the immortal Misty Winston, as Sean says.
We're fucked.
Okay. So the case against Mahmoud Khalil, how the Israel lobby fueled a campus crackdown, by Robert Inlakesh. Like I said, the detention of Mahmoud Khalil, a prominent Palestinian activist involved in organizing at Columbia University, is the result of more than a year of pro-Israeli think tank propaganda and lobbying efforts to tie students to Hamas and erode free speech protections in the United States. Since the first anti-war encampment at Columbia University last April, and let's not forget that that's where it started, a network of pro-Israel organizations, including lobby groups, think tanks, and private security firms, has worked to dismantle the student protest movement. Their influence has been evident in the rapid and coordinated response to suppress demonstrations. And also, let's not forget that Israel committed to spend $150 million in PR to stop this. Despite Secretary of State Little Marco Rubio's public claim that Khalil is a Hamas supporter, quote unquote, no evidence has been provided to substantiate that allegation. In fact, a White House official admitted in an interview with the Free Press, fuck Barry Weiss too, that the allegation here is not that Khalil was breaking the law. The Trump administration has offered no evidence of illegal or violent activity to justify its efforts to deport Khalil, a green card holder, or at least now a revoked green card holder. Instead, his removal appears rooted in political disagreement. Washington has made clear that any speech critical of Israel can be labeled as pro-Hamas and anti-Semitic without the need to substantiate such claims, which again is fucking insane. This absence of evidence has been a defining characteristic of the broader campaign, driven by the Israel lobby to curtail the First Amendment rights on college campuses. While Jewish student groups were among those leading last year's anti-war encampments, the Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, chapters became a particular focus of political scrutiny. What a shock! A central figure in this push has been the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a neocon think tank frequently cited as a source for alleged links between Hamas and SJP. The FDD's argument hinges on the claim that the American Muslims for Palestine, or AMP, a major supporter of SJP chapters, has ties to individuals formerly associated with charities shuttered for allegedly financing terrorism. In one such case, the Holy Land Foundation resulted in convictions that have since been widely criticized as politically motivated. Go figure. This is what they've been doing. The FDD first presented its claims publicly in 2016, but they failed to gain traction mainly due to a lack of substantive proof. Again, no surprise. Among his chief concerns was that AMP does not have to file an IRS 990 form that would make its finances more transparent. That critique is striking given that the Quincy Institute recently revealed that the FDD itself operates with, quote, dark money funding and holds a 0 transparency rating. Pot calling kettle black, baby? Yeah. You know, it's okay for them to not have transparency, but AMP certainly needs to have transparency. Well, because they're pro-Muslim, of course. In May of 2024, the Washington-backed Atlantic Council, and we know how neocon they are, suggested in an article that Iran was involved in the student protest movement. Insane. Corporate media quickly picked up on that claim and attempted to build a case around it, because of course they did. Narratives, folks. Yet despite the steady stream of coverage, easy for me to say, none of the reports were able to muster any real evidence to back up their accusation. Alex Karp, we know him very well, CEO of Palantir Technologies and partner of Peter Thiel, a company with deep ties to the CIA, has taken up a public crusade to reshape discourse on college campuses. His rationale for urgency is blunt, quote, if we lose the intellectual debate, you will not be able to deploy any army in the West ever, quote unquote. But they are losing the intellectual debate because you can't just strong arm and stonewall and silence everybody that criticizes you. Guess what ends up happening? You lose the argument, asshole. Safra Katz, the Israeli-American CEO of Oracle and one of the highest earning women in global business, has also weighed in on the protests. What a shock that she would be a Zionist. She reports to Larry Ellison. When asked about the wave of student demonstrations, she framed the issue in starkly militaristic terms. Quote, the reason, in my personal opinion, why they're out there is because they think Israel is weak. While they're murdering, okay, let me finish her quote. They think the Jews are weak, so they stand up strong. If Israel regains its deterrence capability and America regains their deterrence capability and is strong, they will disperse like they always do. We've seen this pattern here in Israel. When the terrorists feel strong, they're out in the streets. And when Israel comes in hard, they're hiding under the floor, unquote. Wow, that is as disgusting a quote as I've ever seen. Sentence by sentence, okay? They think Israel is weak. While they think Israel is murdering children, unarmed, defenseless children, and destroying city blocks and stealing the land. That's what I think. That's what they think they're doing. They think the Jews are weak. This has nothing to do with Jews. This is to do with Zionism. There are Jewish Zionists and there are Christian Zionists. Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, Christian Zionists, not Jewish. All right. This is America's not strong. America's shipping bombs to fucking Israel. How many 2,000-pound bombs do we need to send them to show our quote-unquote strength? How many bombs do we need to send to Ukraine to show our quote-unquote fucking strength? Tanks, drones, ammunition, you name it. And now soldiers too. What a disgusting piece of shit. Not only did Katz compare student actions in the United States framed as part of a resurgence of anti-Semitism, again, Palestinians are Semites, to terrorists, but the Israeli-American businesswoman has also contributed to both Donald Trump and Marco Rubio's political bids in the past. Of course she has. As CEO of Oracle, which owns OpenAI, Katz doubled her company's investment in Israel following October 7, 2023, because she's a piece of shit. The Anti-Defamation League, which, of course, has repeatedly accused U.S. student movement of anti-Semitism and supporting Hamas, while also being openly a hate group themselves, has openly called for the deportation of Mahmoud Khalil, because, of course, they have. Jonathan Greenblatt is a disgusting individual, president of the ADL. Pro-Israel groups insist that Khalil has ties to Hamas, yet even the Canary Mission, a site notorious for doxing pro-Palestine university students, could not produce evidence beyond his participation in a protest chant. Because now speech is considered to be violence? I guess if you're AOC, Are you saying that you're AOC Republicans? Huh. Interesting. Okay, chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is apparently now against the law, even though they never really passed a law against it. The site argues that the phrase is pro-Hamas solely because Hamas leader Khaled Mashal has used it in the past. Well, by that, by that logic, anyone that has used any KKK phrase is apparently a KKK member or pro-KKK, right? One of the loudest voices behind the crackdown on campus protests is Trump's UN ambassador, Elise Stefanik. We know all about how and why and who's openly boasted about her role in forcing the resignations of 5 university presidents. Even Columbia University's decision to give in to pressure from pro-Israel lobbying groups didn't shield it from White House retaliation because it was the original place of the protests. So they had it wasn't about that. The administration still moved to strip $400 million in federal funding from the university, sending a clear warning to other institutions, as well as to the administration of that institution that they better get in line if they ever want it back, which they may or may not get. This multi-pronged assault on free speech, built on baseless accusations of Hamas and anti-Semitism, is now being used to justify the deportation of a permanent U.S. resident whose wife and future child are American citizens. Again, they are American citizens. The campaign it's part of a broader effort to erode the First Amendment protections under the guise of national security. There's only one issue, and that's that the First Amendment may not apply to green card holders. We got to check here. I got a whole thing about this in a minute, in a few minutes. All right. So again, Robert Inlakesh, go check him out. Indie Media Award honoree 2024. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. Who else is telling you stories like this? Now, I wish it were all sunshine and daisies for Professor Mahmoud Khalil. However, I can't do that. I think some of you know Laith Marouf, who is with Free Palestine TV. Now, this is also a lesson in you cannot work with Zionists, even if you try, even if you're trying to do the right thing. And here's the funny thing. The case of Mahmoud Khalil is a perfect example of the limits of liberalism and collaboration with the Zionist empire in hopes of gaining some equity or change in the power structures. For those who don't know, Khalil is a Syrian citizen who collaborated with the imperialist plot against his homeland and worked for the UK embassy in London coordinating destabilization programs. That's like white helmet shit. He also worked in the NGOs in the USA designed to drive the Syrian diaspora youth astray from decolonization and into the arms of Wahhabi and Ikhwani collaborationist rule. So that's not great, okay? As for his role at Columbia University, he was a go-between, agreed upon by the Zionist administration and the Palestine liberation supporters, i.e., he wasn't a member of the movement and only a messenger. He was also against the Hens Hall movement and actions. So, here's Mahmoud Khalil, a man who sold his country to the wolves for a few measly dollars, who acted as a reasonable messenger of Zionist power to the Palestinians at Columbia, and all he got in return was a crappy t-shirt and to be disappeared by Zionist master in the White House. He didn't even get a crappy t-shirt, really. Moral of the story here, as an Arab or Muslim, no matter how much you suck up to the Zionists, they will never treat you as an equal human, and the more you suck up to them, the more they will humiliate you when you outlive your usefulness. We hope Mr. Khalil returns home safely to his family, but you should all know what you are supporting, and to do so in spite of his shortcomings, because his disappearing, even though he is a tool, fool, or even agent, signals that all Arabs and Muslims in the USA could be treated even worse. And there are some receipts. And I hated bringing that part, but I would be disingenuous if I didn't, because that is part of the story. And it's helping people form certain angles and narratives about him. And you cannot, lionize him necessarily. All right. You have to speak the truth and say the whole thing and all of it. Now, we're going to have a little bit of levity. They had a hearing in New York City. Susan Sarandon, the millionaires op herself, decided to show up and show solidarity, which is just wonderful. And there's so many people that love and adore and admire Susan Sarandon, the wonderful, beautiful 70-plus-year-old millionaire Susan, who doesn't have to be out there, but she takes up causes of lefty persuasion and amplifies and advocates for them, and we appreciate it. She gets her little moment in the sunlight for sure, and her credit. But let's just not ignore our friend Jett, who also wrote a song about this almost 3 years ago, actually, called How Could You, Susan? So we're going to play that right now on the show.
I remember while the golden age, 2015, and feeling like the world would be okay, until Susan came along, and just to suit her selfish needs, she went and tanked the Hillary campaign. So you can go thank Susan for those nightmare years of Trump. You can thank her when he wins in 24. And if I had the chance, I'd ask why she won't cancel debt, or why she made inflation simply soar. I'd say, how could you, Susan, throw us to the wolves? Why'd you let those wildfires burn? Why'd you make Joe Biden take back every single promise he made back when he still had votes to earn? How could you condemn us to a ruling fascist hand? And how much did they pay you for your part in Putin's plan? How could you destroy us with such reckless, cold abandon, Miss Sarandon?
How could you? Incredible. That's the one and only Jett, folks. Catch him on American Tradition every other Tuesday night on INN and on Friday nights on The Clip Show. Amazingly, he wrote that, like I said, almost 3 years ago. He predicted Joe Biden losing and, of course, Donald Trump winning in 2024. Why? And then he's supposed to shake his head for 30 seconds and tisk on the album version, but it hasn't made it to an album yet. Maybe it will make it to clandestine radio. Like I said, I wanted to mention something about green cards here. And so I'm going to lean on another Indie Media Award honoree for that, and that is Consortium News, who I adore. So this was from somebody I'm not familiar with, Gabriel Chin from The Conversation. They reposted this. Okay, and they said that green card holders' rights. As a pro-Palestine protest leader, Mahmoud Khalil faces deportation. Okay, and here's this professor listing 3 major differences between the rights of citizens and lawful permanent residents. Okay, so again, I thought this was very important to bring because we want to look at the actual law and what's going to happen here and not be surprised. So, Gabriel Chin writes, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that the government will deport lawful permanent residents who support Hamas and came to the U.S. as students with an intent to rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student anti-Semitic activities, referring to the Palestinian rights protests at universities in 2024. Here's further Rubio quote, and if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card, as a result of that visa while you're here and those activities, we're going to kick you out. It's as simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is not about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin. This is about people who don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with, Rubio said on March 12th. That policy has now ensnared Mahmoud Khalil, a recent graduate of Columbia University and a leader in the Palestinian rights protest movement at school. Khalil, a Palestinian who was born in Syria, faces deportation after he was arrested on March 8th in New York City. The Department of Homeland Security said that the Secretary of State had determined Khalil's presence or activities in the country posed, quote, serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. I don't know how they intend on proving that. But I also want to note here that it is misrepresented that he is a leader in the Palestinian rights protest movement, because he is the negotiator. He is the go-between between the leadership and the school. And I want to make that distinction. Khalil entered the United States on a student visa in 2022. In 2024, he received a green card and became a lawful permanent resident, meaning he has the legal right to work and stay in the United States. There are an estimated 12.8 million lawful permanent residents in the country. Khalil's lawyers say that his arrest and pending deportation are, of course, unconstitutional. And this is from the protest on March 10th outside the courtroom. In many respects, the rights of lawful permanent residents and citizens are similar, yet citizens and lawful permanent residents do not enjoy equal status under the law. This is really important to understand. This is how they're going to come at him. The Supreme Court and other courts recognize that lawful permanent residents have First Amendment rights to free speech, yet the Supreme Court upheld deporting lawful permanent residents in the 1950s based on their political activity, in particular, membership in the Communist Party. So, while lawful permanent residents may not be criminally prosecuted for their political speech or activity, what they say or write may well affect their ability to remain in the U.S. if the government determines that they are a security risk. Remember the language Rubio used. I'm a scholar of immigration law. Here are the three major differences between the rights of citizens and lawful permanent residents. Number one, like he said, you have limited political rights. Lawful permanent residents are people born in other countries who can legally work and live in the U.S. for as long as they like. They may enlist in the U.S. Armed Forces, apply to become U.S. citizens, and are legally protected against discrimination by private employers. States also generally cannot discriminate against lawful permanent residents, though states may require certain groups of people, such as teachers or police, to have U.S. citizenship. Between 1820 and 1920, non-citizens routinely participated in different aspects of government, including voting, holding office, and jury service in many states and territories. That's amazing. Voting. Non-citizens voting. These days, states and the federal government generally allow only citizens to serve on juries, hold political positions, and vote. With a few exceptions, such as voting in some local elections, permanent residents are not able to do any of these things. They don't get a vote for president. The distinction between non-citizens and citizens extends to other areas of life, such as public benefits. The Supreme Court has frequently stated, in the exercise of its broad power over naturalization and immigration, Congress regularly makes rules that would be unacceptable if applied to citizens. In practice, this means that the federal government, and to a much lesser extent states, do not offer public benefits such as Medicaid and other kinds of government support to lawful permanent residents and other non-citizens on the same basis as citizens. Now, they may offer it, but on a different basis. For example, lawful permanent residents must generally wait 5 years before becoming eligible for certain programs intended to support low-income people, such as Supplemental Security Income, SSI, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as SNAP. That's food stamps. Finally, this is the one that scares all of us. Unlike citizens, lawful permanent residents can lose their legal immigration status. Yes. Congress has enacted many grounds for deporting a non-citizen or stopping them from entering the country. Some courts have found that the U.S. government can deport a lawful permanent resident because of national security or terrorism concerns, even if the person has not committed a crime. That's where they're going to get them. The Trump administration argues that they can deport lawful permanent residents like Khalil under the 1952 Immigration and Nationality Act, which states that a lawful permanent resident can be deported if the Secretary of State has reasonable ground to believe that this person, quote, would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. Which, again, I don't know how you prove. How do you prove that this guy, this one person, has that kind of influence anywhere, let alone at a university unarmed, where there has been zero violence by students? The Trump administration had initiated deportation proceedings against Khalil on this ground. U.S. law also provides that any non-citizen can be deported if the Secretary of State and the Attorney General jointly determine that the person is associated with terrorism, and we know how Pam Bondi gets in line, or poses a threat to the U.S. Again, I don't know if they even need to prove this, or they can just state that they feel that way, and that's enough. In addition, the law says that an immigrant can be deported if they, quote, endorse or espouse terrorist activity or persuades others to endorse or espouse terrorist activity or support a terrorist organization, hence the Hamas stuff. But meanwhile, their support for HTS the last few years, no question about how they've been supporting a terrorist organization, or even the Knesset, who's been bombing and murdering unarmed children for 75 years, really, but especially since October 8th, 2023. That's terrorism by its specific definition. No, that doesn't count. Still, lawful permanent residents are entitled to certain basic rights, such as retaining a lawyer to represent them in administrative hearings and court before they're deported. And they haven't even given them that. By contrast, the U.S. government cannot deport a U.S. citizen for any reason. Oh, but don't worry, the Trump administration is working on that one, I can guarantee. However, sometimes U.S. citizens are deported by mistake, quote unquote. And you can be sure that the people that they want to deport will be deported by mistake. Mistakes just amazingly happen. Indeed, the Supreme Court has found that while it is constitutional to execute a military member for desertion in wartime, it would be cruel and unusual punishment to deprive them of citizenship. Okay? So here are the legal grounds for deporting non-citizens. There have been few recent court cases testing the scope of deporting lawful permanent residents on national security grounds based on pure speech. In 1999, the Supreme Court ruled that if a person is deportable, they are deportable, even if there is some other reason that motivated the government's deportation proceedings, such as a suspicion that the non-citizen is involved with crime or terrorism. The Supreme Court also then held that the government could deport non-citizens for technical visa violations, even if the case was based on the government's belief that the non-citizens were associated with a terrorist group. This is not boding well for our friend over here. There's also some precedent arguing that deportation based on adverse foreign policy consequences is too broad and nonspecific to even be constitutional. Indeed, Marianne Trump Barry, the sister of the president, held this opinion when she was a federal judge in the mid-1990s. But Samuel Alito, then an appeals court judge, overturned Barry's ruling on procedural grounds in 1996. Interesting. Again, getting technical here and really legal mumbo-jumbo. For its part, the Supreme Court has occasionally held that very broad and indeterminate deportation grounds are void for vagueness, meaning so sweeping and imprecise that they are unconstitutional. But That's in the past, and that's not a Trump-appointed Supreme Court that is 6-3 Republican. Khalil's lawyers appeared with the U.S. government lawyers before a federal judge in New York on March 12th. Their goal, to get Khalil moved from internment in Louisiana back to internment in New York. That's the goal now. But that may just well be the beginning of a long haul for the Palestinian student. Courts have proved reluctant to second-guess security grounds rationales in immigration cases. For those reasons, cases like Khalil's may go on for years. While his baby is born, while his wife has to deal with raising an infant by herself, while the threat of deportation holds over their heads, while they have to shell out money for a lawyer that they probably don't have, man, it's a nightmare. Now, not only that, again, narratives are being formed all over the place, but I want to absolutely give credence and talk about the way that he was detained in the first place. Asal Rod, I have tremendous amount of respect for. She's phenomenal. Another journalist, Middle Eastern journalist. Seeing how Mahmoud Khalil was detained is unreal. A guy wearing an Avenger shirt from an unnamed agency says, "We have you." They refuse to give their names, and it seems he has no rights to be read while being arrested, all while his pregnant wife watches and records it horrified. And I'm not going to play the video. This is 2 minutes. Okay, we can play this one, I believe. Yeah, this is from Asal Rod and actually from his wife.
You're going to be under arrest. So turn around.
Okay,
Stop
let's
resisting.
not.
Stop resisting.
Okay, he's not resisting. He's giving me his phone, okay? He's not, I understand, he's not resisting.
Put your arm
Like,
There's no need for this.
Don't worry about it. You're going to have to come with us. Don't worry.
I'm coming with you, don't worry.
No one's resisting, no one's getting worked up.
you guys really don't need to be doing all of that.
It's fine, it's fine. Maybe it's fine.
حبيبي كيف بدي اتصل فيك؟
Take Amy. Call Amy. She'll
Okay.
be.
Hi, Amy. Yeah, they just like handcuffed him and took him. I don't know what to do.
8 months pregnant.
Okay. And what should I do? I don't know. Nor. Let
He
me
just
ask.
literally disappeared. Is that a cop car?
Can we get a name, please? Can we get your name? I understand the lawyer is asking for your name.
Go over there. No, we don't give our name.
The lawyer's asking for your name. He's saying they don't give their names.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They'll be taken to immigration custody at 26 Federal Plaza.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
They'll be taken to immigration custody at 26 Federal Plaza.
She said they're taking him to 26 Federal Plaza.
Did they never identify themselves even as ICE agents? Okay,
Can
he's got a
can
badge
you
on
please
him.
specify what agency is taking him?
I would take a picture
please?
of that badge.
Excuse me. They're not talking to me. I don't know. I don't know. Excuse me. The lawyer would like to speak to somebody. Oh my God, they're literally like running away from me.
Yes, they are. Yes, bad cookies. That is illegal. That is correct. That is illegal. But who's enforcing the laws? Who's in charge right now? Unfortunately. Whatever they say apparently is the law. Now, again, all the narratives and everything going on. Now, I don't know why it's saying I'm not following Mr. Nico House, because I certainly am. Maybe I got unfollowed. But Nico House over at Hotspot made a video that I want to play. The dean of the department at Columbia University, where Mahmoud Khalil got his degree, is run by an Israeli spy, allegedly, whose job it was to surveil Arab speakers on behalf of the IDF. Yes, Mahmoud's dean was tasked by Israel to spy on people who fit his exact description. Let's watch this.
A professor at the center of the Columbia deportation scandal is a former Israeli spy. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because there ain't no such thing as a former Israeli spy. Now, if you're like me, you were curious as to why Khalil was singled out of all the people who protested and organized last year at Columbia University. You see, Khalil was actually a graduate of the university's School of International and Public Affairs and was abducted by ICE. But what you might not know was that the dean of his program is Karen Yari Milo, a quote-unquote former Israeli intelligence officer. And her job as an intelligence analyst was to surveil the Arab population because of her ability to speak Arabic fluently. I mean, this intelligence analyst is still so well connected that she was able to conduct an invite-only closed event for former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, which led to a protest of hundreds of people coming out, and the Jews for Peace at Columbia publishing on Instagram that the event should have been public and that they condemned the political project of Naftali Bennett. I don't know, man. I'm just saying. An Arabic-speaking Syrian former graduate student had a dean whose job it was to surveil his people. And it wasn't everybody who's been suspended. It isn't Jewish students who have been suspended or arrested or are being threatened with deportation. It's specifically the Syrian Arab protester organizing to protest the genocide happening in Gaza. And his dean had a job of surveilling his people. I just find that a little bit suspicious, don't you think? Like I said, there's no such thing as former Israeli intelligence.
Shout out to Hotspot. Go give them a follow. What are they now? It used to be at Hotspot. I don't know where they are now, what they're at now. But at Real Nico House, give him a follow. Well, I'll put that up for you, Cookies. I'll put that up. Careful with that statement, Nico, because the same could be said about military intelligence, like you, former, because I believe that Nico has admitted it in the past that he also is former military intelligence, potentially. Certainly Tulsi has. I also want to go to Glenn Greenwald on this one, who I'm not a big fan of, honestly. He's okay, but he's also never met a billionaire whose money he wouldn't take. So I'm not a great fan of his. And he was through the door on Rumble. He did, again, it's conflicting when it comes to Glenn. But he had a good point here that drowning yourself in the legalities of the rights of green card holders is disingenuous. And even there, it's beyond obvious that Khalil's views on Gaza were the motivator. He's speaking to his right-wing audience here. The Trump world is filled with extreme Israel loyalists who explicitly vowed to use power this way. Now, he's not saying that he isn't. He's kind of neutral, it seems, because he knows that all the money behind him certainly is pro-Israel and he does not want to fuck with his golden goose. But he will call it out for what it is. And I give him some credit for that. What's really going on here is desperation. The reason so many, and again, he loves to use the woke stuff, the anti-woke pundits began obsessing on American campuses is fear of the growing boycott movement, which took down South Africa's apartheid regime. Censorship is a reaction to fear that they're losing public opinion, which they are when you murder children who are unarmed and you drop bombs on them. It tends to hurt public opinion about you as a country and as a people. That's just me. Thanks, Glenn. Now, this is part of a long thread. The pro-Israel right is 100% embracing all of the core premises long used to justify liberal censorship. It's so transparent as to be self-evident. They're pretending it's only the Khalil case to excuse it as just against green card holders, but it's far more sweeping. None of this is new. Israel critics have long been a prime target of censorship. In 2014, a University of Illinois professor condemned Israeli mass bombing of Gaza and lost his job. The Jewish student group said they couldn't be safe with a professor who used hate speech. Sound familiar? He said, I could literally spend all day documenting such cases where Israel critics in the U.S., many Americans, lost their jobs for that. Since October 7th, it's far worse. laws have been passed and executive orders issued to punish Israel criticism. It was a key factor in the TikTok ban. There's a lot of narratives, and people are trying to use this guy as a scapegoat. They're trying to make this guy into something that he may not be. They're trying to make him out to be a terrorist sympathizer, which he's not. They're trying to make him out. He is a university student, a grad student who graduated, I guess, but he's now a green card holder who had the legal right to go find work in this country and to protest on his university campus, where his wife was still attending. This man had absolute right to be doing what he was doing and to say what he was saying. And now the administration and MAGA, which has now been turned into MIGA, Make Israel Great Again, has now been manipulated to advocate against this man's free speech, which if the Biden administration had done the exact same thing, they would be screaming bloody murder from their roof, from every rooftop they could find, that this were wrong and be on Khalil's side. But, of course, Miriam Adelson said so. So Trump's in line and everybody else is in line too. All right, this is all illegal and it may get overturned in the courts, maybe in time, maybe, but all the judges are in Trump's pocket and it's not looking good. I'm saying, you know, it's sad. It's not looking good for any of us, and it scares the hell out of me as a dissident reporter and journalist, you know, to some degree. You know, we're all at risk at this point. We definitely get demonetized off of YouTube for that. So if you are of means and able to support, as Colin says, take care of your family, take care of your friends, take care of yourselves. But if you're able and you find a couple of bucks between the couch, between the cushions of the couch, or wherever you can find a couple of bucks, Cash App, $, Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. And then you can also subscribe for free over at innnewsletter.com and get daily updates about what's happening at the network. All the live streams, all the articles, all of the clip premieres that are happening throughout that day are published at 5:45 p.m. Eastern, usually, on average. We'll almost certainly be censored for that as well. So if you are able to and a means, take care of your family, take care of yourselves, take care of your friends, but take care of INN and fund the independent media you want to see. Cash App, $, Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, and you can also do it at innnewsletter.com monthly or annually, but please do it at one of the other three places instead. Support independent media because we need it more than ever.
Can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.